Hey guys, welcome back to Hatch and Hustle, and we're here at a Singapore Fintech Festival 2023 at Singapore Expo. It's an SRF special. So we decided to find Vinod, the founder and CEO of Moneysmart Group, for this Fintech special.
Hello.
Tell us, Vinod, what is Vinod in a single tweet?
Father, son, husband, entrepreneur.
Ooh,
Nice.
that's deep. So maybe I could take you back to growing up years, and how has it affect yourself as an entrepreneur? What's your story?
I came from a very humble background. So my mom was a teacher, my dad was an insurance agent. I think the thing that really sparked my curiosity about entrepreneurship was my dad gave me this Rich Dad Poor Dad book
Oh, I've got it as well!
when I was 17 years old. And I knew nothing about the business world. I was like, wow, I was so fascinated about some of the concepts there. So that really triggered my curiosity.
Awesome stuff.
So Vinod, what does a founder and CEO of Moneysmart Group do? What is the day-to-day like for you?
So a lot of my time is spent on vision and strategy, and sort of crafting kind of the future direction for the company and how do we navigate the complexities that we're currently facing and might face in the future. Secondly, a big part of my role is culture and people. So being a steward of the culture of the company, because I believe that the behaviors precede the results. So how do we make sure that we foster the right collaboration as a team and have the right people on board? And the third thing is setting the risk appetite for the company, right? So how aggressive do we want to be in taking risks at different periods of our life stage? So I think those are the three roles that I play.
Do you remember the first big task of being CEO for Moneysmart?
I think the one that comes to mind is my first fundraising experience,
Oh.
which was 4 years in after starting the company. I had no clue how to go about doing it. The good thing is, so we ended up raising our seed round from Golden Gate Ventures, and we were Fund 1, Check 1 for Golden Gate Ventures.
No
So they also didn't know what they were doing. So we kind of made it work, and they've been incredible investors over the last almost 10 plus years with us. So yeah.
Okay, Vinod, tell us more about Moneysmart Group and how big is it?
So Moneysmart Group is probably one of the OG fintech companies in Singapore.
I love the way you describe it. Oh, gee! Indeed.
We've been around for 14 years now. I founded the company in 2009. And at the moment, we currently operate two brands. One is Moneysmart, our namesake, which is a financial aggregator, so helping consumers compare financial products like credit cards, loans, insurance, and investment products. And last year, we launched a new brand called Bubblegum, which is our own direct-to-consumer insurance products as well. So trying to really address the needs of digital natives by transforming the experience that they have with insurance.
How big are you guys, employee-wise?
We're about 150 people now, across two markets, Singapore and Hong Kong. Yeah.
Why did you choose to start Bubblegum?
I saw a big gap in the market with a lot of the incumbent insurers still kind of being very hesitant about really going big on digital. They face a lot of conflict internally, right? When 99% of your revenue comes through insurance agents, it's very hard to disrupt yourselves. I think as a new player, there's an opportunity for us to really understand and address the needs of the younger generation of consumers who don't really want to talk to an agent, and they want to be empowered to make their own decisions.
Does it feel like being a founder all over again with this new baby of yours?
Yes,
How does it feel like? What was the process like as you got this started from 0 to 1?
Actually, Bubblegum is a COVID baby.
Wow.
It's a COVID baby. When the pandemic hit, it was really rough. I mean, we saw drops of 50% of revenue almost overnight, which is such a big shock to the system. And over a couple of months, we managed to figure out a strategy to recover the core business. But I think the main takeaway for me is, it made me really go deep and think about how I could make the company more resilient for the future. And so that sparked a couple of ideas, and out of that emerged Bubblegum. There's this opportunity to build a brand for digital natives.
And you mentioned you're the OG, right? Yeah. So you've seen many people come and go. Like, what really differentiates Moneysmart from the rest?
I think from the way I operate, for me, it's always about building core capabilities and keeping the customer front and center. You're only in business to serve your customers, and the market decides whether you're addressing their needs or not. And so we have focused on building things like content capability with our blog, being really good at search engine optimization, being really good with our creatives and customer experience. Those are the key things that people actually look for.
Doing the hard yards.
Doing the hard yards, right? And it's not a quick solution,
Yeah.
right? You don't get your ROI in 1 month, 2 months, right? It takes time to build that. And the people that have, or the companies that have come and gone, took the quick route of we're going to spend a lot of money on marketing and branding,
Chasing the next fad.
chasing the next fad, which doesn't last as long. So I think we focus on key things, key capabilities that will last.
And Vinod, there are so many personal finance platforms and content, and you are the media expert. And what I see is that attention is getting scarcer and scarcer as we go along. People are getting easily distracted. So how do you make sure Moneysmart can cut through that noise?
I think it's about understanding what are the emerging technologies and trends and meeting customers where they are. So if customers are more, spending more time on TikTok, for example, then what is the right message to get across through that platform? It's new for us as well, so we are constantly experimenting. I think I tell my team it's okay to try and fail. The most important thing is that you are trying, right? And then we learn from our lessons and our mistakes, and we improve and be even better. So I think AI is going to completely change consumer behavior. Things are going to move away from search over a period of time. Google has been extremely dominant for the longest time. But now you don't need to search and read. You can just go in and ask your question directly and get an answer. So we're spending a lot of time in-house thinking about what that future will look like so that we can disrupt ourselves and not be disrupted.
And I think that's startups, right? Disrupting, thinking fast, being agile.
Yeah.
Just the question on perhaps when you were growing, you said Hong Kong, Singapore. Like, how do you know you were ready to go into a new market?
Somebody once told me you're ready to go into a new market when you have your first McDonald's kind of done right and your one store is working. We made a lot of mistakes when it came to international expansion. So right now we're in Singapore and Hong Kong, but we used to be actually the first market outside of Singapore that we went into was Indonesia. Wow. Through an acquisition back in 2015. It was the very hyped market at the time. Everybody's like, Indonesia is going to explode. I was like, okay, all my investors know better. I don't know anything, so we'll go in and make it work. We managed to grow the site to like 12-13 million visitors monthly.
Wow, that's crazy.
But
we
the
need to take notes
monetization
from
was-
Hatch and Hustle. We need to ask, we're going to take some advice from you.
Yeah, traffic very easy, monetization very, 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 very hard. That was the
People
lesson
want
learned.
free stuff, they don't
People
want to pay
want
for
free
it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a real challenge, and you have this kind of sunk cost bias where I already made the decision to go in. So we tried for 5 years to kind of make it work, and then
5 years?
Yeah.
Oof.
And despite kind of really executing everything within our playbook according to plan, the revenue just didn't flow through. The market dynamics are just too different.
You mentioned that you made some mistakes along the way during your international expansion. Could you just tell us briefly what was it like and what would you have done differently?
I think what I would have done differently is really go down to the market and understand the pain points of the customers and go through kind of the customer journey. So in Indonesia, unfortunately, a lot of things are actually not digitized. And so that meant that we needed to have call center operations. If somebody wanted to apply for a credit card, unfortunately, they need to have a wet signature on the application form. So we need to hire a courier guy to take the application form from our office to their house, get them to sign, and then take that application form to the bank. And then somebody at the bank loses the application form, and then we get the blame.
It's very interesting. We one of our
yeah.
previous episodes, we were talking to the Glynn's co-founder, and he was telling us they had to do payments at a car park, like
Bags of cash.
bags of cash to pay part-timers issuing flyers, and that worked for them in their Indonesia expansion. So I see a similar vein where you can't just copy and paste
Can't just
methodology
copy and
from
paste,
Singapore to Indonesia or to other markets as well.
Maybe can I just ask you on your thoughts on regulations? Because you're in the fintech space.
Yeah.
It's a very regulated space.
That's why we're here at SFM
Yeah.
also.
That's true. So any advice on entrepreneurs to navigate regulations?
I would say the path that I went on, which I would do again if I were pursuing the journey, is don't play in the regulated space first. Especially if you don't have experience, right? If you used to run an insurance company and you know how the regulation works,
You know who to call.
you know who to call, you know what to get done. That's a different story. But for me, I didn't come from that background. I started Moneysmart straight out of college, and so we started playing in the non-regulated space first with comparing banking products and stuff. And then over time, as we built that credibility and that brand with Singaporeans, we applied for our license, and MES was super supportive to give it to us because they knew what we stood for in helping people make better decisions, which aligns to the regulators' interest.
Do you have any advice to younger and aspiring founders who are going into this space of regulated startups? How should they approach people from the government?
MES has been quite helpful. They're always happy to engage early. They want to know what you're up to. And regulators exist to protect consumers. That's the ultimate thing. So whatever you're doing, as long as it's for the benefit of the consumer, generally they're quite supportive of that. So I would say engage the regulators early on. Depending on what your sector kind of is, I would also say try and hire somebody who's been operating in that space as well. Always helps to have somebody with experience dealing with regulators and understanding the compliance requirements, which we had to figure out from kind of scratch. But if I had to do it again, I would just find the right person to take care of this from
Speaking of the right person, what's your philosophy in hiring?
Philosophy in hiring. So we have 3 values that we look for at Moneysmart, and we want people who are humble, hungry, and smart.
Is it in that order?
No, you need all 3.
Wow!
You need all 3. Yeah.
That was very hard to get into his
So what's
company.
what's the process like? How do you test
How do we
subject
test?
humility? It's something that people
Yeah.
can always act and then interview or case study.
Yeah, so no interview process is bulletproof, right? Because there are people who know how to game the system and they can interview. So we have a sort of 3-stage interview process. First is what we call top grading, where we go through your career history, understand how you landed that job, what were you hired to do, who did you work with, and how would your ex-boss rate you on a scale of 1 to 10. And then kind of connecting the dots from your first job all the way until now, right? So we build a picture of your career history. Second interview is what we call a focus interview, which is a case study. So given the role that you're going to be taking on in the company, what are some of the challenges that you're going to be solving? We give it to them as a case study so that we understand the thought process behind how they would approach some of the challenges. Some things were historical challenges that we've overcome, so we kind of know the answers, and some things are challenges that they are being hired to actually do, so we want to get a bit of a head start on understanding how they think about it. And the third one is a culture interview. So a culture interview is where we ask kind of behavioral questions, right? So anybody can say, usually I do this, usually I do that, but we want concrete examples. So I want to say, tell me the last time you had a conflict with a colleague. What was it about? What was the disagreement? And it's not so much about not having these things. These are natural human things that will come up as you interact with other people. I think the more important thing is, even if they made a mistake, are they humble enough to recognize that, hey, actually on hindsight, I don't think I handled this the best way. And if I had to do it all over again, I would approach it differently. I think that's what we look for in humility. Whereas somebody who says, I can make no mistakes, I think I did it all well, that's usually a red flag to watch out for.
So since we're at Fintech Festival, I want to ask you something about dollars and cents.
Okay.
You reported really insane growth in your revenue in the first half of 2023. So
Congratulations.
congrats on that big
Thank
news.
you. Thank you.
I've seen it. So have revenue always been top of mind at the start of a media business where it's always about traffic and numbers, or has that become like a newer consideration along the way?
So back when I started in 2009, there was zero VC ecosystem in
Is it?
Singapore.
Okay.
So the first 4 years of Moneysmart was completely bootstrapped. So I put in and I was a fresh grad, so it's not like I've been working and saving up. I have $5,000 in my bank account and I went all in.
Very different from founders these days, where
Yes.
capital is just like
I want to raise
this-
a 5 million angel round.
Yes, and like
Pre-seed.
during summer like 2021, the funding summer 2021, it was so easy for everybody. Like
Yep.
nobody's thinking of monetization at all.
Yeah. So monetization had to be a consideration from day one, because there was no external source of funding. So you had to think of a business model from day one and generate revenue from day one. So that's been in the DNA, I think, of the company, because it was bootstrapped right from the start. And then as we get capital, it's also about being very thoughtful about how am I going to spend $1 to make $2, $3 in the future, right? So you really, I really had to become very disciplined. I treat it like my own money. If I had this cash and I was spending it on, where would I invest my dollars to make a difference?
So maybe one question about what's next for Moneysmart, right?
Yeah.
Like where's the next 5 years and how is it
Yeah.
going to look like?
Very exciting. So we are working on a couple of initiatives. One of them is bubblegum. So continuing to build. We've had 14 years of helping people compare products in the market, and we've got a very good sense of what are the needs of our customers. And so we see that in the market there's some gaps that are not being addressed, and we want to be able to go to customers and say, hey, we put together a product that is actually really good for 80% of the audience, and we've made the customer journey really seamless and simple, so that we can drive a new type of experience and change how people typically think about insurance and financial products, which can be complicated, cumbersome, time-consuming, and so on. The other big space we're looking at is AI. So like I mentioned, I think it's now's the time to think about how the future of financial advice is going to look like in general. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, I can't tell you exactly when that transition is going to happen, but in the next 5 to 10 years, financial advisory is a sunset industry.
Yeah, it will happen.
It will happen, right?
It will happen.
I can't tell whether it's going to be in 2 years or in 10 years, but I know it's going in that direction, and we want to be on the cutting edge of coming up with a solution that really helps people get the right advice.
So Vinod, I mean, we read a lot about your Reverse Takeover, RTO. Firstly, what is an RTO?
So RTO is a reverse takeover, and what that means is the company that's actually acquiring us will be issuing more shares to us than they hold themselves. So we become the majority shareholder in the after the acquisition.
Interesting. And what's the difference between that IPO and why not an IPO? Like, all these things that founders typically look at.
Yeah, so IPO is a company pursuing a direct listing, and typically a RTO is, I would say, similar to a SPAC, where it comes with a company that's already set up, is already listed. So a listed company buying a private company, but then the private company runs the company moving forward.
Interesting. So perhaps if you could just share with us your journey and your experience coming out at RTO, what did you learn from it? What were some key takeaway points?
Yeah, definitely. I would say firstly that an IPO is not an exit. I think a lot of people kind of glamorize that. Oh, once you go public, it's the you've made it.
Yeah, what I hear from some of the founders that I've met is that their dream is just to take a picture and nest at people.
Yeah.
Ring the
I
bell.
was like, yeah, but then the thing is, I've also heard advice that like you shouldn't, if you're early in your founding journey, you shouldn't dream about the exit already, or like or just being on Nasdaq building. What's your take on that?
It's
your
okay.
process?
It's okay to have that ambition for sure. I would say listing is the start of the next chapter in the company's journey. Nobody will sell. As a founder, I will probably won't be able to sell all my shares on day one. So everything is kind of paper value in that sense. And yeah, so it's the start of the next journey, and actually it's a very different journey because the type of considerations that I need to think about as a listed company is how's the share price going to perform, what story am I telling the market? As a private company, you don't really have to worry so much about these things.
So actually on public company, I think one big thing is that you can't choose your public investors. Unlike your private investors, you can say yes or no. And the market is going to judge you. And if you're not performing, they're going to short the hell out of you. So I think that's one thing that founders probably have not appreciated yet. Look at Grab. Grab share price has come down 70% since the IPO. It's not really within their control so much anymore. Maybe just a quick one on the RTO coming back. Can you just relive on to the extent you can share what happened and the key experience coming out of that, the learnings as well?
Yeah, I think a couple of, it was an incredible learning journey for me because I was very intimidated going into the process. I'm like, oh shit, we're going to be an IPO company. I need to think about a board, I need to think about financial reporting, all this stuff. So I definitely have learned a lot and would be less intimidated kind of going through it second time around. I think one of the outcomes out of this process is the company that was supposed to sponsor the listing said we are a perfectly listable company. So that was something I'm very proud about and happy about. Market conditions were not great, right? So this was back in June, post Credit Suisse and Silicon Valley Bank. I think it was a very rough time for public markets. And unfortunately, we came to the conclusion that by taking the company public, we would destroy shareholder value as opposed to create shareholder value, right? The point of going public is so that you can realize the full potential of the stock and let the market decide, hopefully in your favor.
That's right.
And that's why the value of the company increases. But with all the global uncertainty and volatility, I think we came to the conclusion that it's more probable that the stock price will go down due to nothing and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it because it's got nothing to do with how the business is fundamentally kind of performing.
But it takes guts, after so much 18 months of hard work, it takes guts to pull it out, isn't it?
Yes, very, very tough decision. I think my entire team, the entire company was looking forward to it as a milestone. But I have to make the right call as the CEO, right? And if there's no point ringing the bell and then everyone goes down the toilet the next few days, I will still have to answer for it. So you kind of pick your poison, and I had to make that call.
So Vinod, yesterday you were at Founders Peak at Singapore Fintech Festival. How was it like? What was the experience like? And you were day one first speaker.
Yeah. Extremely intimidating. So Founders Peak is where you give a 10-minute TED Talk style speech.
For those who missed it, tell us more about what you spoke about.
So I spoke about zero-based calendaring, which is similar to zero-based budgeting but for your time. And I found myself a couple of months ago coming to the brink of burnout. I've been on this journey for 14 years. RTO, the whole process was extremely intensive. And I came to this realization of, what the hell am I doing with my time? It feels like a bit of a Groundhog Day. Everybody is pulling me in all different directions and I don't have the space to think about, what's the bigger and brighter future for the company. And so I zero-based my calendar. I kind of canceled everything, started with a blank slate and was more intentional with how I set up my time. And more importantly, taking time for self-care, right? So having time for fitness, having time for family. Because I realized, what's the point of delivering for stakeholders if you miss your child growing up or you miss spending time with your family during this journey, right? It all needs to come together holistically. So I shared about my process and the outcome I came to, and hopefully that inspires other founders to be more intentional with how they spend their time.
And how is the experience being in that spotlight, sharing about zero-based calendaring at the Founders Peak?
Intimidating. I've never done anything like it before. I've done public speaking, but it's usually a bit more chill. I had to memorize a full 10-minute speech, keep to time, deliver a performance. But I think it went well. So it was a good experience. Proud of myself for having made it and survived through that. Thank you.
Vinod, if I could take you back to day one, when you were the OG of all entrepreneurs, And coming through the system after 10, 15 years, how have you seen the Singapore ecosystem evolve?
It's really great. I mean, honestly, there was no Block 71 back then. I'm really grateful to NUS because NUS had this little incubator.
Aren't we all three NUS alumni?
That's right!
Yeah. The NOC program really changed my life. Not so much from the technical skills that I learned, but it gave me the confidence to start. And then they supported with incubation space when there wasn't this concept of co-working or anything else.
Did you start ideating a company back in the incubation space?
Yeah, so Moneysmart is actually my third startup. I co-founded E27 when I was still in school. I co-founded my first startup in my last year of university.
Wow.
E27 is still going strong. My other startup failed. But I had just graduated at that point in time, so I had my first failure under my belt when I graduated. But NUS was super supportive. Yeah.
So what's the biggest change in terms of ecosystem? Like you see, 5, 10, 15 years on. What would you say the one or two biggest developments in the Singapore ecosystem?
I think two main things. Number one, the investor community has completely grown, right? So when I started, there was no VC. The government had just come up with a 50k iGEM grant, which I applied for and got rejected, by the way. That was as much funding as you were going to get. But now you see companies raising multi-million-dollar pre-seed rounds and stuff.
Definitely more robust and easier access for everybody. Like even right upstairs at SFF, there's investor hours where there are literally platforms for founders, whether you're very early stage to growth stage, to just present to. I think there were 70 plus VCs who signed up. So I think it's just it made the journey much easier. But what are maybe some of the downsides that you've seen? You mentioned, I guess, people are less prudent.
Yeah, I think there's a lot less risk of failure because you're using other people's money. Whereas, as a bootstrap entrepreneur, you put your money where your mouth is, right?
So it's more like the founder spirit.
That spirit, yeah. Good and bad, I guess. But when I started, you just had to be resourceful. There was no guidance, there were no mentors, there's no ecosystem to tap on. So the space has definitely grown. There's a much bigger community of founders as well. For me, a big part of what drives me is I really enjoy talking to other founders to help share the lessons and the mistakes that I've made so that they can be successful.
Speaking on, the Singapore founder ecosystem, what do you think can be done better, Vinod?
Oh, good question. I don't know. I would say it's pretty good. I wouldn't ask for anything else.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I think that I'd love to see a bit of a cultural change. People are very afraid to fail still, and it's still a social stigma, right? So I think if you look at all successes, you got to fail 99 times and you succeed one time. If you don't embrace it, how are you going to succeed?
Especially more so in an Asian culture where, people are just more conservative. There's very deep-rooted risk aversion because of parents and upbringing compared to the Western culture as well.
And as a VC, when an entrepreneur come to me and they say they have failed, I judge them by the key learnings that they got out of it, not the failure itself. So, you mentioned that you have success cases and you have failure cases, but those are the episodes and experience that made you who you are today.
I take a different view to that. I think the great entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs despite this, as opposed to having a homogeneous thing where failure is accepted kind of everywhere, right? You need to see the ones that persevere and break through the failure in spite of the rejection. Right? Those are the ones that make it through, that really have the tenacity to making it through. And the market will be the market, right? So if you have that view of I'm going after second-time founders who have made mistakes but learned their lessons, and 99% of other VCs are ignoring it, if that's your thesis, then you have a competitive advantage against other people. So I think the market decides. To me, it's not up to society to make failure the norm. That's not how we are wired. That's not how the majority of society is wired. but entrepreneurs do that in spite of the risk of
that's a very
failure.
good way of looking at it.
And speaking of failures, I know it's been some time since the mid-2000s when you mentioned that you failed your first startup back when you were a final year student. What was that feeling like, and how did you have the courage, or what were you thinking when you started E27? If you remember how that felt like.
So E27 started after I came back from NOC, and it was actually something that was started in Silicon Valley. So we knew the founder started E27 back there, and it was just a nice community to bring people together. We thought, we came back to Singapore, there was nothing happening on the scene, and a few of us kind of got together to start bringing like-minded people together. So we never started it as a for-profit kind of thing. Started very small. The first gathering I think was like 20 people, but every event kind of doubled in size. And before we knew it, we had government projects, people asking us to organize their events, people want us to organize tours to Silicon Valley and so on. So it started getting more and more kind of commercialized. But that's not why I started. So some of the other co-founders wanted to continue running it as a for-profit kind of business, and that's okay. So I handed over the reins to them. Still going strong after all these years. And then I moved on. I guess while I was doing that, I really started my first product-based company, which was a real estate search engine. So competing with the likes of Property Guru, who was also just getting started back then. So right idea, right time. I would say a bit naive. I mean, that was my first real kind of product company. I was overly focused on the product and not enough on the business model. And like I said, with no VC kind of ecosystem, you can build a great product, but if you don't have revenue or traction to keep going, then it becomes a bit of a challenge.
Speaking of VC, what's the craziest thing an investor has told you?
Craziest thing?
Or an investor would be?
I mean, I've had some crazy stories where people have pulled out of term sheets for no good reason.
Oh, that's tough.
They don't tell you?
No, they tell you. I mean, they give you a term sheet very easily, and then they're evaluating after they give the term sheet as opposed to the other way around.
Right.
So you kind of have your mindset that, okay, this is a deal that's going to close, and you close the engagement, and they're like, actually we changed our mind. I was like,
Oh.
Bennett, have you done that?
What?
No way.
Yeah.
Well done, well done.
Yeah.
So what are your advice for entrepreneurs for fundraising? Like the biggest and most tip-top advice?
I would actually say fundraising is, a lot of people look at fundraising as validation, but I would say stay true to your convictions and your belief. Ultimately, it comes down to the market to decide, right? So focus on your customers. If you're solving a real problem, figure out your business model from day one. A lot of people try and build the product and figure out monetization later on, but you're just delaying the inevitable that you have to figure out. So it's always better to front load some of these things and be self-sustainable. That way you control the narrative when you talk to investors. And we've not been on the cutting edge of stuff for a very long time, but I've seen the entire cycle, right? So investors that didn't look at us favorably are now, wow, you guys have continued to grow, you survived through COVID, you're now profitable, okay, I want to invest, right?
Yeah. They always say that the best money is customers' money.
Customers' money, exactly. So I completely believe in that. Control your own destiny. If you get the right investor, that's great, but don't look at that as being the only thing that you base your entire self-worth and conviction on.
Cool. So Vinod, now you're going to talk about personal finance.
Okay.
Do you think that young people today are feeling more hopeless and less optimistic about the future compared to our generation and our parents' generation?
Yeah, definitely. I think the same opportunities that I guess our parents had when it came to investing in property and stuff doesn't quite exist anymore. A lot of housing is kind of a big stretch for most average kind of Singaporeans to get to, right? Even HDB BTOs are pretty pricey these days. So I think a lot of young people feel a bit helpless.
I'm so nervous about adulting. It's like a really bad experience trying to think about finance after graduating for like about 2 years now, it's like the most painful thing that I have to think about. Do you have any advice for people like me who navigating things like credit card or like home loans?
Yeah.
While at the process of maybe still even paying their student loans.
Yeah.
How do you find like the best hacks for like credit cards, home loans, etc. Insurance?
Yeah, so I think firstly compare. While it's a big decision, banks are also trying to compete for your business, right? That's the other thing you need to realize. So it's a very competitive market. So don't fall for any hard sales kind of tactic and take the first option that's presented to you.
Moneysmart
that's why
does
we
so
exist,
well
right?
because it's like the Singaporean thing where you have to be a bit more kiasu.
Correct. Yeah. So banks are fighting hard. There's new banks coming on board as well, competing for customers. So it's a very competitive kind of environment. I would say for me, it's about when it comes to expenditure, I think you really have to prioritize what makes you happy. And if a cup of Starbucks makes you happy every day, spend on that and see where you can cut down on areas that I guess don't make you as.
I also agree that money can buy happiness. I know I always say, money can't buy happiness, but I believe it. You buy a holiday, you buy happiness for yourself, and that's how you choose how you spend on it. Which is true.
No, I mean, coming back to home loans and trying to buy a house, I think that young people actually struggle. I think you're renting, right?
Yes, I am renting, and oh my goodness, the prices of rental in Singapore is so painful. So I'm moving again.
Again? Yeah, so that's the issue, you see, because people don't own a part of equity. Like in our parents' time and even in our time, we have the chance to partake that equity, right? Even though if it's a 99-year thing but you can sell at some time and make money out of it. But if you rent, then you're not basically having ownership of it. You have no ownership. So I think that people got to plan wisely. The younger generation got to work harder. But most and foremost, I think using money smart, trying to save every cent counts, right?
Yeah. And you have so much data points on what people are searching about. What is like the biggest concern that Singaporeans have based on, I guess, the data that you've collected from Moneysmart?
Inflation is top of mind.
Is that like the most searched on Moneysmart?
How to beat inflation?
Inflation, rising cost of living, rentals, food, everything has gone up, right? So even in the coffee shop next to my office, a taping used to cost $1.50. Now it's like $2.10. So I was like,
$2.70
in a year.
In my neighborhood.
I just got $3. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so managing inflation is pretty much
managing inflation is the key thing. Look, I mean, like I said, my advice is focus on the big things because this 50 cents, 70 cents is not going to make a big deal in the grand scheme of things, right? But refinancing your mortgage could save you a few $100s a month. So you just have to focus on what are some of these big things that you need to do. Keep that top of mind. So that you can still enjoy the little pleasures that life has to offer.
Awesome.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Personal finance advice from Vinod himself, not any other writer but Vinod himself. Wow. Okay, guys, it's time for a very fun segment. We're gonna do a quick fire round where we're gonna say one word and Vinod will tell us the first thing that he thinks of. Okay, I'm gonna start. First is Singapore.
Home.
Love.
Family.
Entrepreneurship.
Work.
I'll go next. Money smart.
Work.
But not.
Human.
Oh, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Vinod.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, do give us a like and also comment what you want to see next. And don't forget to hit subscribe and we'll see you at the next episode of Hatch and Hustle. Bye, everybody.
Bye.